Welcome back. We're going to pick up our story today. And if you remember, yesterday when we were reading, we learned a little bit about what the conditions were like where Clara was working. There were 300 girls in a small space. They didn't have much of a bathroom. Remember, if you were late, you would get fined or you'd lose half of your day's pay. You'd get fined or even fired if you got something on the fabric. And then remember, at night before you could leave and go home, they locked the doors and they inspected the people that worked there. So their bags, their purses, their pockets to see if they had stolen anything. Doesn't sound like a very trustworthy place to work, does it? We're going to continue today. We're not going to finish the story, but we're going to learn a little bit more about Clara. It says, but Clara is uncrushable. She wants to read. She wants to learn. At the end of her shift, that's the amount of time that you work, though her eyes hurt from straining in the gaslight and her back hurts from hunching over the sewing machine, she walks to the library. So here's a picture of her right in the library. It says she's uncrushable. Think about what that means. She fills her empty stomach with a single glass of milk and goes to school at night. When she gets home in the late evening, she sleeps only a few hours before rising again. So here's a great illustration of her neighborhood. All of these different tenements, these apartment buildings, right? Here's Clara at night, right, doing her studies, doing her reading. Here's lots of stitching again in the story and the illustrations. I notice some newspaper up here towards the top as the background. So not just using paint or colored pencils or something to do artwork, but using other objects as well. As the weeks grind by, Clara makes friends with the other factory girls. At lunch, they share stories and secrets as if they were in school where they belong. Clara smolders with anger, not just for herself, but for all the factory girls working like slaves. Think about that word, smolders. Clara smolders with anger. It's a really good, strong verb. Think about a campfire. And when the fire goes out, it's just still burning, it's smoldering. This was not the America Clara had imagined. The men at the factory tell her they've been trying to get the workers to team up in a union. A union is a group of people who come together, then they'd strike, refuse to work, until the bosses treat them better. But the men don't think the ladies are tough enough. Not tough enough because they're girls? Oh, yes, they are. Clara knows it. She'll show them. Take a look. She's holding on to her timesheet. Looks like a real timesheet, doesn't it? From then on, at the sewing tables and on the street corners, Clara urged the girls to fight for their rights. When the seamstresses are overworked, she says, strike. When they're underpaid, she says, strike. When they're punished for speaking up, she cries, strike. So here is her building where she's working. You can see all the girls inside. Right? It's called the Triangle Waist Company. Cloaks and suits, clothing specials. A cloak is just another word for a coat. So she's urging them to strike. And they do. So here's what a strike looks like. They carry what's called picket signs. We call it a picket line. It's just people outside kind of marching in front of the place that they're picketing or the place that they're on strike. So out front of the business where she's working. So there they are, picketing, saying, that they're overworked, they're underpaid, and they're speaking up. Each time Clara leads a walkout, the bosses fire her. Each time she pickets, her life is in danger. The bosses hire men to beat her and the other strikers. The police arrest her 17 times. They break 6 of her ribs, but they can't break her spirit. It's shatterproof. I'm wondering, do you think this is a fiction story or a nonfiction story? Clara hides her bruises from her parents. A few days later, she's on the picket line again. And the other girls think, if she can do it, we can do it. For weeks, the small strikes go on, but the bosses find other young women to do the work for the same low pay and long hours. So their striking, their picketing, doesn't seem to be making a difference. Right? They're trying to make change, but so far, it's not working.